Massachusetts.
Thank you all for being here today. We know what challenges you confront in such a fiscally constrained environment, and so we appreciate your coming here to talk about how we recruit the best and brightest going forward. I wanted to bring up an issue that's particularly evident in my home state of Massachusetts. Massachusetts is home to two remarkable installations, one Air Force and one Army, that are developing some of the premier technical advances in some of the military's most complex endeavors. Hanscom Air Force Base is known as the birthplace of modern radar and airspace management, and continues to be credited with developing programs with great technological achievement. And Natick Soldier Systems is delivering incredible life-saving capabilities to our soldiers. During a recent visit to Natick, General Odierno, who we were so glad to have come to Massachusetts, stated, quote, "The work they do at Natick is critical for our future. These are the kinds of technologies that we need," unquote. But I've heard concerning stories from each of these installations about how sequestration, furloughs, hiring freezes, program delays, and budget cuts, including pay cuts, have made it more difficult for them to retain and recruit the highly specialized personnel needed to fulfill this important work. And I'm also very troubled by the message sent by the reduction in research development, test, and evaluation funding that is part of the omnibus package moving through Congress. We are now experiencing the steepest percentage cut in research and development funding seen in any economic downturn since the end of World War II, at a time when our challenges are becoming ever more complex. So as a result, the private sector is becoming the primary choice for highly skilled personnel at an alarming rate, particularly when we look at the losses within our defense labs. I've worried that this talent drain, both in our uniformed and civilian ranks, will compromise our ability to successfully achieve our national security objectives in the future. We know that we will always confront threats from increasingly capable adversaries, and our military will constantly need to execute future missions with even greater agility and precision despite fewer resources. But it's going to require an investment in military innovation and the brain power needed for us to, despite these challenges, keep the technological edge. So my question is I'd like to hear from all of you, if possible. I'd like to hear more about what the services are doing to recruit the skilled workforce you need, but also to retain the highly skilled civilian workforce that plays such a key role in these technological advances that are taking place at so many of our defense labs. And I don't know if you'd like to begin speaking on behalf of the Defense Department.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm not aware of the particular issues at Hanscom or the locations. We are aware that with the furloughs and the pay cuts that we need to keep our eye on the impacts, especially to the civilian workforce, but also to our military and retention. So we are providing oversight. We're watching that, and we provide that information up through our leadership when we see signs that we're starting to have difficulty.
General.
Ma'am, for the Army, we've been able to maintain the right number of quality, but as we look at some of our growth areas like cyber, that's an increasing challenge. Our recruiters are going out there in the high schools and going after STEM, not only the scientific technology and math, not only for our soldiers, but also for our officers at places like West Point and ROTC, where we've driven the number of STEM degrees up in both cases, because we recognize that the increased requirement for technical abilities in the future. In terms of the civilian workforce, ma'am, that's a little bit outside of my purview, but I will tell you within my section, having the civilians furloughed did have an impact on our personnel policy because they weren't there, and oftentimes it's a one deep person position, so we need to work through that in the future.
How do you calibrate the need between the civilian side and the military side? How do the services deal with that as well? I mean, since you need both.
Part of it is in the force structure that is designed, which calls for either military or civilian. In some cases, civilians are on the documents in order to provide continuity and depth in the area, whereas the military tend to move around a little bit more.
Congressman, thank you for your question.
With respect to civilians, overall policy is beyond the scope of my responsibilities. However, I do have civilians within the recruiting command. And I think part of our challenge is on retaining good quality, high-performing civilians is the fact that for a number of years, they received no pay raises. They were the butt of particular jokes, and it's just, quite frankly, an issue of respect and how we look at the civilian workforce and how we treat them. There are challenges with respect to resources, et cetera, and I understand that. But overall, we can look in the mirror and see where some of the challenges are in retaining some of our really good civilians. They are an incredibly committed, patriotic group of individuals, but we've challenged them, I think, in the last few years with respect to them staying. With respect to attaining high-quality personnel, the Marine Corps tends to, my focus is on selling the Marine Corps and not specific jobs. We have requirements. We look for good quality people. Our officer recruiting focuses and understands that we're competing with corporate America and the other military services, and that's a high bar for us to pass over. And so we use just a broad range of techniques and efforts to make sure that we're attracting high-quality, talented, and enthusiastic individuals to take up the challenge to become Marines.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for your question. As far as a high quality, the Navy also look into the STEM program, making sure that we can have those high technical science, technology, engineering, and math. We go after those because we know that those are the ones that we will need to take our Navy into the next century. As far as with our civilians, I will take that one for the record. I can't comment on that. But what I would like to say about our civilian sailors is that they certainly was missed during the furlough. You can tell that that was a big miss. We work closely together, hand in hand. We work as a team, and we want to continue to do that. And we also know that the furlough certainly set that back. It only brings about working much more with the military and increasing their hours as well. And for the Hanscom, I'm not familiar with that as well, ma'am.
It's more the broader issue that Hanscom and Natick raise, just the need for these qualified personnel in general. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, strengthening the public's awareness of STEM association with the Air Force is an enduring priority in our marketing and advertising strategy on the military side, and we've actually been very successful on both the officer and the enlisted side recruiting the STEM talent that we need to fill the requirements that are associated with that. The civilian side is a concern to us as well, and it's a difficult challenge, especially when you look as the size of the civilian force gets smaller and the rules that govern how you handle reducing the size of the workforce. What you find is that your young people, we value longevity, and so what happens is your youngest person is typically the one that's let go. I think that's tremendously challenging, and I will take for the record to get you some. I'm not familiar with all the things that we are doing to try to bring civilians into, in particular with STEM, and I know we have issues at Robbins. I was not familiar with concerns at Hanscom, but I will take that for the record.
I'd actually appreciate if all of you would take it for the record, because I think it's an important issue. So thank you, and I yield back. I appreciate your giving me additional time.
Very important, and thank you, Congresswoman Tsongas. We now proceed to Congressman Jeff Denham of California.